Chancellor Brogan, thanks. I'm going to get off the financial figures here for a second.
But my head is spinning.
Hey, I was a history teacher. I'm not enough, you know. I noted a couple of years ago, Clarion, and I should state for the record, I am a proud IUP Indian. I am not a Crimson Hawk. I am not that bear thing they were for a couple of years. But a couple of years, another neighboring college, Clarion, which is only 30 miles north of me in Ford City, made a really tough decision to stop their music program. And of course, there was outcry from all the alumni. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Earlier today, we heard that we are a system, 14 schools. We've heard we have a glut of too many teachers coming out. I'm wondering systemically, has PASHE and its 14 presidents gotten together and kind of done a projection into what job fields are emerging in the state and how PASHE might be able to best address our students' needs? My point being, if we are putting out too many LEd teachers, is it necessary to have 14 separate LEd programs?
Mr. Chairman? Couldn't agree more with you. As a system, we believe that one of the strengths of being part of a system is the ability to plan academic programming together versus in isolation. It is important for two reasons. One, to make certain that what we're turning out fits the need, but also doesn't oversaturate. Right. And on the flip side, to make certain that if there are voids in need around the Commonwealth, that we are organized in a way to try to better fill those needs. So as I mentioned earlier, this inventory that we're working on, and again, we'll ask our partners in the state relateds and the privates to join us in terms of populating it, will give us a much better portrait, number one, of what we currently offer as a state in higher ed, and then number two, as we work up the supply-demand gap analysis to be able to see not only what jobs are out there, but what availability exists in those jobs, or, as mentioned, where jobs are oversaturated by degree. That can be of incredibly important relevance to us as a system, so that if a university wants to close a program that might still need to exist somewhere, we are looking system-wide to assure that that availability is still out there for prospective students.
I thought you made a very, very salient point earlier about the 14 schools being spread out geographically, which would allow access by people of all areas of the Commonwealth. I was one of those guys. I commuted to Indiana from Ford City. My father commuted Katanning to Clarion. The geographic proximity is very valuable to us in the West. We don't have as expansive transportation systems as they might in the East. But I keep coming back to, do we need 14 programs in finance, which is also a glutted field? Do we need 14 programs in just phys ed? You know what I mean? If we are truly a system and we are trying to serve the needs of our matriculating high school seniors, do we have that nimbleness, that flexibility where, say, a kid in Katanning wants to study geothermal engineering? Yeah, it's a pretty specified major, but is it realistic to think that kid's going to be able to commute to IUP Clarion, Slippery Rock to get geothermal engineering? You know, that's my question. Does the system have enough flexibility in it right now where we can change, ebb, flow, adapt?
Mr. Chairman, more than ever before. Because I agree with you. Generally speaking, it should not be necessary to replicate all your academic programs 14 times in a state. Right. Not only shouldn't it be necessary, it doesn't work anymore based on the competitive nature of the state relateds and the privates to have all 14 universities offering an identical array. That having been said, some redundancy is inherent. English needs to be taught at all 14 universities, et cetera. But when you start to get into some of the areas that are prescribed as the ones I've laid out today, it really is important that you tee up what you want to teach going forward, but also make sure that it works in harmony with the rest of the system. And our belief, ultimately, not out of arrogance, is it should also mean that it works in harmony with the state-relateds and the privates. If we work to put in place a program because there's not enough of it in our system, but when you look at the state-relateds and the privates, they're awash in these programs, you've got the same problem.
Yeah.
You've just sent it on to the larger delivery systems. And so we have to do this not only internally as an institution and as a system, we have to do it best we can in harmony with the other delivery systems. You can only do that if you have accurate data and information upon which to work, and that's what we're working to get.
I'll tell you what, Chancellor, that was the perfect answer. That was great. Chairman, one more question. Last year, there was legislation passed by this House and the Senate and signed into law by Governor Corbett that allowed universities fortunate enough to have large landownings overlying the Marcellus Shale to enter into leasing agreements so that they might realize revenue from that shale gas. Are you aware of any of our PASHE schools have taken advantage of this? I know IUP was looking at it real hard.
Yes, sir. As it relates to today, none of our universities is in hot conversation regarding lease arrangements. A number of our universities, tangentially, though, are involved in the energy industry with new degree programs and certificates, et cetera. But currently, none of our universities is in conversation regarding actual lease agreements on our campuses.
There are no deep well deployments on any of our PASHE school holdings?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
Well, if we're talking about revenue sources, I got to think that's a pretty nice one. You might want to go back and think twice about that one.
Yeah, I think in part it's because the industry itself isn't there yet as it relates to us. I think they've got a lot of things going on right now, as I understand it. I'm not saying that won't be the case in the future. It just, for now, does not appear to be the case.
Well, I'd like to speak to you outside these doors on that. I don't know what you mean by that. I am pretty familiar with the industry, and they're ready to go when you say go.
Well, based on the law that you all passed last year, that door is open, and each of our universities is looking at their place in that. But again, currently, to my knowledge, there has not been any hard conversations to take it to the next level. And that's not anybody's fault. It just hasn't gotten there yet, I think, is the case.
It's ducks on the pond, Chancellor. I'll close, Chairman. I am reminded of an old adage: you can't change the winds of fate, you can only adjust your sails. And hence the question about the flexibility and the nimbleness of our PASHE system. Thank you.
Yes, sir.